I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching accesstv.org.
My name is Cleo Duke Wright, and I'm the owner of Cole Books on 677 Blue Hills Avenue in Hartford, Connecticut. I have a few stories for you today, and I call them What Would You Do stories. And the first story I have for you is a story about two brothers. And their father was sick. He was an old man, and he was very sick. And the younger brother came to his father, and his father told him how much that he cared for him. And the older brother came, and he said, "You know, when I die, I want you to work this farm together. I am leaving this farm to both of you." Well, the younger brother was very kind to most people, and he was very appreciative of his father and very gracious. But his father saw something else in the older brother that did not make him happy. The older brother was angry because in their tradition, the older brother inherits everything, not the younger brother. So he left the room in anger. And when the father died, and after the ceremony, the older brother kicked the younger brother out and took everything. The younger brother had nothing, and he traveled many, many miles from his farm, his father's farm, and he found a patch of land that he could work. And so he worked it very diligently, and he was able to make a life for himself. So he married, and he had children. And they lived there for years. And they were just able just to make a life for themselves. And they just had enough. But it was enough because they had love and they cared for each other. But one year, the farm failed. The farm failed terribly. And his family was starving. So he went back to his older brother and asked, "Please, my family is starving. Give us something. Give us food so we can survive, so my children may eat." The brother said, "Get out of here. This is all mine, not yours." And he kicked the brother out. And oh, how the brother suffered. And he looked for food for his little children. And everything he could get, he gave to his children and his wife. And his wife went out and found food for the children, but never very much. Well, one day, the young son was walking, and he looked up in a tree, and he saw this bird. And a snake was coming at the bird, and the bird was chirping and chirping. And then all of a sudden, the bird fell and broke its leg. And the younger son ripped his shirt and set the bird's leg and waited for the snake to leave and set the baby bird back up into the nest and went home. And continued to feed his family as best he could. And many nights his children went to bed hungry. His wife went to bed hungry, and he was in anguish for his sadness to watch them moan in their sleep. And then one day, a bird came by. The same bird, all grown up. And he dropped the seed into the earth. And the seed began to grow and grow and grow and had these great big melons. And the melons became ripe and dropped to the ground immediately. And the children ran, "Father, can we eat the melons?" The father said, "Wait." And he cut one of the melons open, and it was full of gold. And he cut another full of gold. They were rich beyond their wildest dreams. And they bought land, and they were wealthy. Well, the older brother heard of this, so he went to find him a bird. And he said, "I want to be rich like my brother. Give me a seed. I will help you." Well, the bird knew the older brother's mind, but he gave him a seed. He flew around his house 3 times, and he gave him a seed, and it dropped into the ground, and it grew, and it grew, and the great big melons came, and they ripened. And the brother came, and he said, "Oh," and he cut it open, and there were scorpions, and they became all over him, and lizards. He said they beat him, and he cut another melon, and all the melons were the same, and they destroyed his land, his house, and beat him until he had nothing left. And there he stood with his hoe, with nothing, with his head down, until his brother, he felt a hand on his shoulder. And his brother said, "What? What would you have said if you were his brother, his younger brother? What would you have done? What would you have done?" Now our second story is a St. Peter and Jesus story. And I love this story. You might not know this, but after a hard day of ministry, the Lord Jesus and St. Peter used to go to the local tavern and drink a few brews and talk after a hard day's work. And one day, Peter said, "Ha! We sure did a good job today." Jesus said, "We?" Peter was silent. Then he said, "Okay, you did a good job today." Jesus said, "Me?" St. Peter stopped the second time. Then he looked at Lord Jesus, says, "Okay, God did a great job today." And the Lord Jesus started laughing, and he laughed so hard he banged the table. Well, this made Peter a little annoyed, and he stuck his face in the Lord Jesus' face, and he said, "You know something? I was somebody before I met you." They used to say Peter was the greatest fisherman in all of Galilee. I know what they say now. They say the Lord Jesus cures them and St. Peter picks them up. But I was somebody. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to show you. Tomorrow morning, we're going fishing. Lord Jesus said, "Oh, Peter, I would love to go fishing with you. I've always wanted to go fishing. I've never been fishing." So early that next morning, Peter was down by the shore, fixing his nets. And just had the Lord Jesus with him. And the people came around and said, "Peter, what are you doing? Are you about to go fishing?" He said, "Yes, I'm about to go fishing." They said, "Well, could we tag along with you?" Peter looked up at the Lord. He said, "Sure." So they all went out. And there was the Lord Jesus holding on to the pole in the back, holding on tight. And Peter, he watched the water. He scanned the sky. He looked around and he said, "Over there." The Lord Jesus said, "Well, what are you whispering for? Why isn't anyone talking? Peter said, shh. And they all made a big circle around Peter. And they lowered their nets. Peter said, lower your nets. And they lowered their nets. And when they pulled up the nets, all they had was water. The Lord Jesus had tapped the side of the boat, and all the fish in the Sea of Galilee dove to the bottom. And the men said, what is this, Peter? The greatest fisherman in all of Galilee. You wasted most of the day. And they started going back to shore. And Peter looked, and they started calling Peter names. Peter, stick to preaching. And Peter looked at the Lord Jesus a second time. Tested the water a second time. Scanned the sky a second time. And he said, over there. And the Lord Jesus started rowing as fast as he could. And he lowered the nets. And they caught nothing. And all day long, under that searing sun, they fished. All day long, they lowered their nets. And they got nothing. And then finally, Peter raised the sail. Lord Jesus held on to the pole. And they started back to shore with not a word. Then just as they got to the shore, the fish started jumping up on one side of the boat, jumping up on the other side of the boat, jumping up in front of the boat, jumping up in back of the boat, jumping, slapping Jesus in the face, Peter in the face, and all of a sudden, like a mass fish suicide, they jumped into the boat. And by the time they got to shore, they could hardly move that boat. And the people said, Peter, oh, Peter, you was just kidding us. You was just joking with us. You are certainly the greatest fisherman in all of Galilee. Peter didn't say anything. He said, take these fish and give them to everyone in the village. And he said no more. And as for Jesus, well, Jesus silently walked off to the mountains. What happened there? What happened there? Thank you for being with me, and I hope you are with me next week for more stories. This is Cleo Duke Wright at Cull Books, 677 Blue Hills Avenue, and I'll see you next week. You have a great week.